February the 1st, 1979. Punk hardman Sid Vicious wakes up in a New York jail charged with murder. But in spite of the charge, he'll soon be a free man.
He was released into the custody of his mother, who then, goes out and buys drugs for her son.
He was trying on clothes, playing air guitar, jumping around.
Both hands are just dripping with blood.
He wanted her to inject into him, and she said no, she wouldn't do that.
In 24 hours, Sid Vicious will be dead from a fatal overdose of heroin.
I was part and parcel of supplying him with something which probably was responsible for killing him off.
February the 1st, 1979. Sid Vicious is held at the Rikers Island Detention Center just across from Manhattan, New York. This is the beginning of his last 24 hours alive. For Sid, this is a living nightmare. He's charged with murdering his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, but has no recollection of the attack. He'd been out of his mind on drugs, but all he remembers is that when he woke up, Nancy was dead. Now one thought terrorizes him. Did he do it? For 55 days, Sid, a heroin addict, has gone through the agony of withdrawal. On top of all this, he's been subjected to humiliating attacks.
He apparently was raped, he was abused, he was beaten up. Everything that is your worst nightmare that would happen to you in prison. I mean, how could anybody cope with that?
At dawn, Sid is woken and taken from his cell. He's hoping the nightmare is over and that he'll never have to return to prison. His lawyers believe they can beat the murder charge, and later today they'll make their case to get him out on bail. Sid's hearing is scheduled for noon.
I was dealing with a 21-year-old kid, transplanted from the UK to the United States in a big problem.
As Sid leaves Rikers Island behind him, the clock is ticking on his final day. Step back 3 years to London, 1976. It's the summer that Britain found punk.
It was a fashion thing, it was a music thing, and I just think everybody just locked onto the same vibe at the same time. I think that's what it was all about, that's what punk was, and I don't really think... OK, we had a dwarf, there was Helen, yes, there was a lot of gay guys there, yes, there were a few sort of like lesbians, yes, there was some hookers. It was this whole mix, but that was London at the time. I mean, this is what was going on. Everyone was young, we were all doing really strange things.
It was very outrageous for that time. I mean, we really pissed a lot of people off just because of the way we looked.
Back then, Sid Vicious was a shy 19-year-old called John Simon Ritchie.
He looked more like a sort of James Dean character. He had like slick black hair, big sort of studded wristband. Sid had this shy little boy, lost childlike quality, I think he had about him.
Ritchie was drawn to the emerging punk scene and started hanging out at the Sex Clothes shop on King's Road.
It was a place where something magical might happen if you hung around long enough. And I think that was always a kind of gave everybody a sense of purpose to dwell and to make that pilgrimage from wherever in the UK to this store.
John Ritchie was one of the many punks who made that pilgrimage.
I always liked him, I have to say, and there was something warm about him. He was just very genuinely just a nice person. I mean, so, yeah, he stuck around. I mean, I think he was probably stealing the clothes as much as anybody else was.
John Ritchie was close to Punk's inner circle. One of his best mates was John Lydon, the lead singer of the notorious band the Sex Pistols.
He pushed himself into the scene, you know, so that when the papers started to write about the Pistols and the whole punk thing, you know, he was one of the first things that were mentioned. He went hand in hand with the sort of growth of punk and particularly Pistols.
He didn't quite know what he wanted to do, Sid, but you just knew he was waiting to sort of like fit in somewhere.
When the group did set out to play in a number of pubs around London, this tall, somewhat stalwart creature did show up, and we nicknamed him.
Lydon was given the name Johnny Rotten after his bad teeth, while Ritchie was given the name Sid Vicious, not because of any violent tendencies, but after Lydon's pet hamster, Vicious. It was all a bit of a joke.
Yeah, he was around, you'd see him, and I just thought he was a bit of a burp, to be honest.
Sid was complete marshmallow, really, you know. He's like, we were like playing with children and playing games. And he loved all of that, and like, and he was a big softie.
Now the shy and slightly goofy John Simon Ritchie had a new name, Sid Vicious. He'd spend the rest of his life trying to live up to it. Sid has 20 hours left to live. He's escorted from Rikers Island to the New York Criminal Court. He's been accused of murdering his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, but his lawyers are certain they can get him out on bail. They argue that Sid is innocent and that Nancy was probably killed by a drug dealer who wanted to steal her money.
There were a number of other people who lived in the area, in the hotel, and who were supplying drugs to these people, who had opportunities and access to these people. And it was not unlikely that someone could have come in and attempted to assault them. We were very optimistic that the prosecution would not be in a position to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was responsible.
Sid was gonna get off, we all hoped. Bailey was gonna do an excellent job. His bill was gonna be astronomic. And Sid was gonna play Las Vegas and pay for it. That was it.
But first, Sid's lawyers have to get him out of jail. They persuade the judge to release him, but only if someone can stump up £30,000 in bail money.
I had the money. It wasn't a question. I was not going to use it. I used it immediately.
At 10 a.m., Sid is released.
He was certainly relieved to know he was being released. The last thing that I said to him was, I'll be in touch with you, just be careful.
Sid is free, and his lawyers set about preparing his defense. But in less than 19 hours, Sid will be dead. 2 years earlier, and punk was declaring anarchy in the UK. Some saw it as a threat to the very foundations of civilization. The Sex Pistols were at the front line of the movement, and Sid was in the crowd at every gig, living up to his new nickname.
Whenever we played, there would seem to be some kind of altercation going on, which seemed to be Sid trying to get a bit of the limelight for himself.
Sid was determined to make his mark and create his own brand of anarchy. In one incident, he attacked a rock critic with a bike chain just because he'd given his favourite band a bad write-up.
Just be completely destructive and you get really pissed, really out of it, start lunging around. You know, usually if he did start a fight, he was one who got worse anyway.
Sid was one of these extraordinary people who could have had the words willing prey tattooed on his forehead, because that's what he really was.
And it seemed to me he had this kind of slightly masochistic quality about him, that he'd like to start a fight so maybe in the end he would get an hiding, and he did get a hiding from a good few people that he picked on. He picked on the wrong blokes.
He had a gift for provocation. He did invent that strange kind of dance that became known as the pogo.
Sid's violent outbursts got him noticed and eventually won him his dream job. When bass player Glenn Matlock left the band, McLaren chose Sid as his replacement.
Sid was the most perfect choice to move into that part. I mean, as much as he really couldn't play anything. But hey, listen, didn't matter, did it? It was all about the image.
Becoming a Sex Pistol, I mean, it's probably a dream come true in a way. You know, from being their #1 fan, he was now in the band.
There was no question you couldn't take your eyes off him. He shone so much more brightly than anyone else. When he ever boarded the stage, the audience would always squeeze themselves all over to the left side, because all they wanted to do was be as close as possible to Sid. And Sid would spend sometimes half the show constantly talking to them.
Within months of joining the band, Sid had become the main attraction, turning his stage act into a bloody sideshow.
And just remember at one point him sitting on the bar and he was just covered in blood. I think he'd just broken the bottle and he just started slashing himself.
I used to sort of like put cigarettes on my arm and watch them burn down, and I used to slash that open. You know, I used to rip Coke cans in half to get the jagged edge so you could get a real nice cut and stuff. And I'd never seen Sid doing any of that until he'd seen me doing it.
Charles Wells is a juvenile psychologist who studied Sid's life.
People in the audience would look at him horrified. What kind of person would do this? And their response feeds his sense of self as being different, as being special. He's focused his energies and his efforts on creating an identity, one which doesn't seem to be true to who he perhaps really was. He's trapped by this, because in the end, it's what people want to see. They don't want to see who you really are.
The quiet, shy John Simon Ritchie had transformed himself into the ultimate punk icon, Sid Vicious. Sid has 17 hours left to live. He's out on bail expecting a hero's welcome. But McLaren, who's organised Sid's release, isn't there to meet him. He's in London, being sued by John Lydon for control of the Sex Pistols.
I regret not having been there, but, you know, I had a bloody huge court case mounting on my head at the same time. And you couldn't be in both places at once. It was really hard.
In fact, as Sid walks free, he's met by just his mum, Anne, and an old friend, Peter Kodik.
I recall that moment so well because I think now, when I look back on it, I would preferred him to stay in Rikers Island.
Sid's had a crippling heroin addiction for a year now. In prison, he was denied access to the drug. Now, he's only got one thing on his mind.
Walking down the street is like, I think, you know, he kept saying, you know, did you get it? Did you get it, Mom? Did you get it? Yeah. Yes, Sid, you know? Okay. Walk, faster, faster.
Sid is anxious to get to his mother's hotel, a few blocks from the courthouse. Just before his release, his mum told the papers that what Sid was looking forward to the most was a giant ice cream. But in a bizarre act of motherly love, she's bought her son what he really wants: heroin. It's only an hour since Sid was released on bail with a murder charge hanging over his head. In 16 hours, he'll kill himself. Or that's how the story goes. But according to one eyewitness, Sid didn't kill himself. He was killed by someone else. Sid Vicious has 16 hours left to live. He's been released on bail accused of murdering his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen. Sid's body is clean of drugs for the first time in years, but not for long. Sid's with his mum and a friend, Peter Kodik. His mum's bought him heroin he's now desperate to inject.
He was released into the custody of his mother, who then, goes out and buys drugs for her son. You know, it's unbelievable to me that that would have happened.
Because of heroin as being an addictive substance, in some ways it keeps Sid in the relationship with his mother and perhaps prevents him from truly separating and achieving independence.
For as long as they can both remember, Sid and his mum have taken drugs together. Soon those drugs will kill her only son. Sid Vicious was born in South London on May the 27th, 1957. His father left home when he was 2 years old. In his absence, Sid forged a strong bond with his mother. She was more of a friend than a parent, and she came to dominate Sid's life.
She was poor, and she had a kid. So it wasn't even like she was a single working mother. It was just Sid and Ann, you know? And she was kind of a hippie or a beatnik, I suppose. Free spirit.
Sid's mum led a chaotic life, moving from place to place and doing whatever she had to survive.
And then she moved to Ibiza, Spain for a little while and took Sid with her.
Because she'd been part of the hippie movement back home in England, she would charge sailors to roll joints. That was her way of kind of hustling a couple of quid to keep the kid in a slightly better life.
One of the possible consequences is a Gaye finding it difficult to develop a clear identity. And if a young person has never stayed in a place long enough to establish long enough relationships with peers, then they will miss out on that, and it will be perhaps more difficult for them to say, you know, who am I?
She heard a rumor from a friend of hers that if you were heroin dependent or drug dependent, you could get a free flat. You could be moved up the housing list in like no time. So she just literally said she was heroin dependent, and she got this flat. Of course, the downside to that is you're living in a world surrounded by heroin dependent people.
By the time Sid was 7, his mum was addicted to heroin.
I visited his house where his mother lived. His mother was a dope dealer. It was quite clear. She was always in the kitchen cooking up something or other.
It would have been a very obvious and regular sight to come home and find Mum flaked across 2 mattresses with a syringe in one arm.
I mean, my first memory of him is sort of like people emptying pills into his hands and him just shoving it in his mouth and then asking what the pills were.
Seeing his mother using a needle encouraged teenage Sid to experiment.
Some people are taking speed or amphetamine sulfate, and some people are experimenting with it. And because Mum's got things like old metal syringes that you've got to boil, wash, and you can use 100 or 1,000 times, he's turning up and going, actually, man, you get a better kick out of it if you inject it.
Well, I'd take mass amounts of anything. It'd take downers, speeds, dexys, bombers, blues, amphetamine sulfate, which was, of course, the drug of choice of all punks and everything, and we all used to take loads of that. Anything that would be stuck in front of him, Sid would inject. So I said, I mean, you know, it could be Tuinol, it could be speeds, cocaine, heroin. The more things, the better, really.
Some images that are completely burned on my memory forever from that period, and one of them is Anne's boyfriend selling Sid drugs, heroin, literally in front of me. And I thought, you know, that was it as far as I was concerned. I mean, there was no clearer picture of what it was all about.
By his own admission, Sid injected speed up to 14 times a day.
It's highly significant that his mother was a heroin addict in the past. The adults in a child's relationship act as models. And, for instance, in a home where there is a lot of open drug use, then this would become normal for that child.
Despite the unconventional upbringing, Sid and his mother were very close. But her inability to say no to her son would end in tragedy. Sid has 13 hours left to live. He arrives at his mother's hotel, eager to take the heroin she bought for him.
He's back out, faced with things he was faced with before. Often addicts talk about their drug as their best friend, their lover.
Sid and his mum know he's taking a massive risk injecting a large dose of heroin, especially now his body's clean.
One could see his mother supplying him with drugs as an act of care. Perhaps she recognized the pain he was in psychologically and emotionally and was doing what she could to take the pain away. There is this association with happier times in his life, the times that he's used with his lover Nancy, and there could even be a recreation of that in using it with other people who he counts as his close friends and his family.
Michael Baden is a heroin expert and the coroner who carried out the autopsy on Sid's body.
In 55 days, he wouldn't have had any tolerance left, and he would have had to have started off at a low dose of heroin. It's very common for people who have been addicted to heroin, who go to jail. If they're not careful on their first dose, they can die.
What had been sold to her was absolute rubbish.
I'm sorry, Simon.
It's rubbish.
I'm sorry, Simon.
Sorry? You think I want to hear sorry? Shut up.
Which left him even more disappointed and even more angry. Everything that he was waiting for, this big hit that he was waiting for after he got out of the court, wasn't going to happen.
Peter, you know how I like your photography?
Desperate for a fix, Sid turns to his friend, Peter Kodik.
Sort me out, yeah? Peter?
As a rock photographer, Kodik knows the New York drug scene, and Sid knows he can be relied upon to source high-grade heroin, paid for by his mum.
That's what I want to hear. Brilliant.
I said I'd see what I could do, and I'd see him later on that evening. She probably must have given me, say, between, let's say, $100, $150.
Kodik leaves to score the heroin Sid craves. Sid waits with his mother. Even though she now seems happy to supply her son with the drug, she wasn't the one who got him hooked. For that, Sid can thank the other woman in his life, Nancy. Two years earlier, and just weeks after joining the Sex Pistols, Sid's notorious antics have put him at the forefront of punk. One night, he ended up crashed out on the floor with his mate Johnny Rotten and an American groupie called Nancy Spungen.
She rolled over to John and tried to fuck him. And I think he wasn't cooperative. And so she rolled the other way, and Sid was. And I think that was it, really. Sid lost his virginity to Nancy. As a second choice, I have to say.
Nancy had come to London on a mission to bed a Sex Pistol, and now she'd got one, she wasn't going to let him go.
Hey, do you want to make a pornographic movie? Give us £100.
Sid was very immature, he was very insecure, and she was ideal for him, you know, because he was one saying that you're the star, and which, you know, when you're insecure is what you need.
Sid was like really shining out, and John was being like nothing. You know, he just wasn't giving it anymore.
Once more, Sid had put his trust in a habitual drug user. Nancy had been a heroin addict from the age of 14.
I think she just had one thing on her mind all the time. It was like where her next fix was coming from, more than anything else.
Sid had been injecting speed with his mum for years. Within days of meeting Nancy, he took heroin for the first time.
Nancy's influence was twofold. One was that she told him he was great, and second, she told him that he's even better when you take smack.
The heroin took a hold, yes, that sort of changed his personality, as obviously it would, and he took to it, unfortunately, like a duck to water.
One might imagine that in that relationship, he was able to find acceptance of himself as a man, perhaps. And this would, of course, increase his level of attachment and devotion to her.
Nancy would sort of say to Sid, well, you know, I'll have this, but, you know, you can't handle that much, you know, that kind of thing. So he'd be like, yes, I can.
Sid, damn you!
Within a month, Sid was hooked and using heroin every day.
It wasn't anything I could do, but to see it happening, it was like seeing somebody come down with a fatal disease in front of your eyes.
Sid had finally broken his dependency on his mother and replaced her with Nancy. But with Nancy came heroin, the drug that would eventually kill him.
What was the next question? What was that question again?
It's early evening. Sid Vicious has 9 hours left to live. Sid and his mum Anne take a cab across New York to a small apartment in Greenwich Village, where she's arranged a party to celebrate his first day of freedom.
So what was it like in there, man? This Rikers, how was it?
The apartment is owned by Michelle Robinson, a 22-year-old actress. Sid started sleeping with Michelle shortly after Nancy's death. She was one of the last people to spend time with Sid before he was detained at Rikers Island.
I'll tell you what, you'd be popular in
Also at the party is Eileen Polk, a New York punk who's a friend of Sid's mum.
What are you gonna do next, then? We were all in the bedroom when the party started out. He was hopeful in the early part of the day that he'd be acquitted and he'd be able to be playing music again, put a band together. With Sid and Ann, it wasn't like mother and son. It was like they were partners in whatever crime, the hell they were creating, whatever it was. She was his friend more than his mother. She cared about him a lot and took care of him when she could, like a mother. But she was considered one of the gang.
At 8 p.m., while Peter Kodik searches the streets for heroin, Anne cooks her son's favourite meal, spaghetti bolognese. Sid had been in good form all afternoon.
He had been so positive. While we were cooking dinner, he was trying on clothes, playing air guitar, jumping around. It was like the Sid that I knew was always there deep inside, but circumstances made it hard for that good-humored person to come out, especially in the recent past.
One of the things in treating depressed people that you always watch for, because if you see that their mood suddenly starts to get better, one of the things you have to be very suspicious of is that they haven't decided that they're really going to kill themselves, because their mood usually picks up when they do. They're no longer in confusion and in conflict.
But around midnight, Peter Kodik and a friend arrive at the party.
The atmosphere changed. The atmosphere of the party changed.
Peter, you naughty little girl.
Kodik has kept his promise and scored. Sid can finally take the high-quality heroin he's been craving all day. Just a year earlier, and Sid's escalating drug use was taking its toll. Sex Pistols were beginning to fall apart, and everyone blamed Nancy.
I'd have everyone coming up to me and going, that bitch, that slag, why the hell didn't she fuck off? She was a hooker, she was a drug addict, she was the worst possible influence for Sid. And then Sid would come and say, she's great, she's really beautiful.
In a botched attempt to get Sid off drugs, Malcolm McLaren sent the band on tour.
This is how unscheming Malcolm was. Malcolm felt that Sid was taking smack because the band weren't gigging, and so he was just bored and he was frustrated. So Malcolm thought, we have to get some gigs for the band, so he sent them to Holland. To keep Sid off smack, you send him to Holland, which is the most dumb thing you can do.
Well, it's always difficult to cope with people who are heroin addicts, particularly if you're not and you don't have a lot of experience in that world.
He was good at sort of like promoting the controversy. I think that was it, but I don't think in any other area he knew what he was doing. He might have thought he wanted to be a rock and roll manager, but he certainly wasn't acting like one.
There was nothing fatherly about me. I was very much a Machiavellian, mischievous kid myself. I was not the obvious manager. I mean, the record industry was terrified of me as a manager because I actually adored mismanaging. We tried to cold turkey him in Holland.
Every night, people had to be with Sid all the time to stop people giving him smack. And it was something you really dreaded, because he'd be, you know, he'd like become petulant, he'd get stroppy like smack addicts do when they can't get that fixed.
We would not allow him to go to the toilet without a roadie present. Boogie, another roadie, had to smash the door in, only to see Sid sitting on the toilet saying, "You can't even have a shit in peace."
He went from having that very charming naivety to being a right pain in the arse.
More often than not, Sid got his way and took more heroin. So when the band returned to London, McLaren came up with another plan. He'd remove the supplier, Nancy.
We beat up his girlfriend, Nancy, I have to be honest with you. Wrapped her up, threw her in the back of this car, and the roadie, Roden, I think it was, his job was to drive her straight to Heathrow and put her on the first flight back to the US.
It was Boogie, Sophie and me trying to hustle Nancy into a cab.
Soon the kidnap attempt ran into trouble.
She kind of managed to break open the back door of the car and roll out into the curb as a policeman came strolling by, and she was just screaming, "I've been kidnapped by the Sex Pistols! Help!"
McLaren's efforts were in vain. In January 1978, in a haze of heroin and bitter disputes, the Sex Pistols split. Sid and Nancy were now free to follow their path to oblivion.
The effect on Sid of the band splitting up was probably felt more deeply than, and more suddenly, more deeply than anybody else. On the night that this happened, Sid went off and OD'd. Sid was turning blue on a mattress on the floor, I picked him up. I started walking him around the room, and he started to come back.
Sid Vicious has just 4 hours left to live. It's past midnight and Sid's been waiting to inject heroin all day. At last, Peter Kodik prepares his fix.
I knew the stuff was quite good because the person I got it from, I knew, and they said, you know, be a little bit careful because this is quite good stuff. So I knew it was quite strong, the heroin that had been picked up.
That's good, man. That'd be good.
I think I sort of opened the packet and show him what I got. I mean, you know, Sid's initial reaction would probably be, oh, well, I'll take the whole lot.
Beauty, you beauty. Go easy.
I said, no, this is, you know, this is good stuff I've been told is very strong. Be really careful. So, of course, you know, you tell anybody that, but they still do probably too much.
One can keep on taking drugs in order to get rid of the pain, to get rid of the memory. And this itself can lead to death, but that may not be the conscious intention of the individual.
a little bit of heaven for me. Yeah.
He was fine for, 10, 15 minutes, then I think, he got up, he threw up.
There he is.
He went to the bathroom, threw up again. And sort of, I think, oblivious to it all. She got a little bit worried maybe when, Sid was throwing up, but she was used to that before. She'd probably seen Sid throw up a million times before.
Oh my God.
Make some tea.
Oh my God, no.
Jacques, make some tea, please.
My first thought was, oh, he's fallen asleep or something, but then I realized right away that he was overdosing. He started turning blue, and it was pretty scary.
If somebody takes an overdose of heroin, he can manifest the effects of sleeping, of having fluid get in his lungs, even have froth coming out of his mouth.
Come on.
The heroin acts to depress the brain function. They can't breathe right.
Sid, come on. Come on, buddy. Sid, what's my name? What's my name? Talk to me, come on.
It was like, oh my God, he's, taking too much.
Sid, come on. Come on, buddy. Oh, breathe. Oh.
The basic thing was to keep him up, moving around, and not let him lapse in or fall asleep, or to keep him going, pump some liquids into him.
Come on. Sit, pull his head up, pull his head up.
I had a conversation with Anne in the living room where I said, look, we're about 3 blocks from St. Vincent's Hospital. Do you think we should do anything, bring him to the hospital? And she said, no, absolutely not. The press will find out, they'll make another circus out of it, and he'll go back to Rikers Island.
Anne's insane gamble with her son's life pays off, and finally Kodik manages to bring Sid round.
He's fine, just stand up.
He came out of it. And the first thing he said when he came out of it was, I'm sorry I scared you all.
Sid recovers quickly, but the party is over.
The overdose made me very nervous, and it wasn't what we had planned. We did not want to have a heroin party. I talked to Howie and Jerry only, and we said, let's get out of here.
Sid has barely survived a heroin overdose, but already he's thinking about his next hit.
What do you need? You get me another hit.
After the Pistols split, Sid and Nancy became inseparable. She declared herself his manager. They moved to New York and set up home at the Chelsea Hotel. They filled their days taking heroin and hanging around at Manhattan's punk clubs.
When I first met Sid with Nancy at Revenge, they seemed happy. And then over the course of the next 6 weeks or so, you could see that he was not doing well. I'd see him out at CBGB's and he'd just be sitting there with his head hanging, and Nancy would be handing him one drink after another.
Then, just 48 days after moving to New York, Sid's world fell apart.
Sid's like, out of it. And then the next thing he woke up, when Nancy's dead on the bed with the flick knife that Sid had bought that day sticking out of her stomach. And he knew nothing about it.
Nancy was lying dead. The murder weapon, Sid's 5-inch flick knife. But Sid couldn't remember a thing. They'd been on a drug binge with random hangers-on, taking 2-in-all, a barbiturate, methadone, quaaludes, and heroin.
He may very well have been completely obliterated. He may even been unconscious at different points based on the amount of drugs he ingested. Not just heroin, there was 2-in-all and other things that had been used and abused.
Sid claimed to have no idea whether he killed Nancy or not. From that moment, Sid spiraled into depression. Not knowing whether he murdered his girlfriend would haunt him for the rest of his short life. Sid Vicious has just 3 hours left to live. He's been charged with the murder of his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, but claims he was so out of it, he doesn't know whether he killed her or not. It's the early hours of the morning in Michelle Robinson's apartment.
What do you need?
Sid has just survived an accidental heroin overdose, but now he wants to take more.
You get me another hit?
No. You've had enough for now, buddy.
I told him that was it. There wasn't any more left, you know, because he kept, oh, where's the rest of it? Where's the rest of it? I want to do more. Sid, you've had too much, blah, blah, blah. You know, be careful. So he obviously knew I had some more, so I had to give him a little bit more. The second amount that I gave him wasn't that much.
Within 2 hours of his near-fatal overdose, Sid injects more heroin.
There was no frame. There were no goalposts. He never saw a red light. He only saw green. Danger wasn't something that he'd ever consider. And he never ever thought that his life was important.
This time, Sid takes a small amount. As the drug takes hold, he begins to talk. It's the last conversation Kodik will have with Sid.
You know, we spent like the last 2 hours, you know, talking about, you know, what he's going to do. You know, he was due to go up to record this album, which is going to finance all the lawyers' fees, etc. We talked a little bit about Nancy and stuff like that. Yeah, he was fine.
After checking on Sid, Kodik makes plans to leave the apartment.
What heroin there was left, I gave to his mother, and I said, look, as far as Sid knows, there's no heroin left, okay? It's all gone. Give him this in the morning. She's like, fine, fine, yes. You promised, Beverly, you promised you won't do this. Yes, yes, I promise.
Kodik gives the leftover heroin to Sid's mum and leaves.
All I know is when I left the house at about 2 o'clock, he was fine.
Kodik is one of the last people to see Sid alive. His heroin intake is now being rationed, and he's making plans for the future. There's nothing to suggest that in less than 2 hours, he'll be dead. 4 days after being arrested for Nancy's murder, Sid was released on bail for the first time. In the days after Nancy's death, Sid was racked with guilt over what he might have done and sliding into a deep depression. His mother, Anne, and the Sex Pistols manager, Malcolm McLaren, became so concerned they asked forensic psychiatrist Dr. Steve Teach to assess Sid's state of mind.
It seemed he had a much longer depression going on from his childhood about kind of being treated second class by a society. He seemed to have no sense of purpose. The Sex Pistols had broken up and Nancy's death was overwhelming him. I mean, his coping strategy had been heroin.
The Sid Vicious tough guy persona was being tested to the limit. Facing a murder charge, the facade was falling apart, and more than ever, it seemed that Sid was capable of anything. Psychiatrist Steve Teach suggested that McLaren or his mother keep Sid under constant surveillance.
I recommended that they watch him, that one of the two people with him watch him all the time.
But they didn't.
The mother had gone off and scored dope for Sid around Union Square that night, 14th Street. It was easy to score dope in those days around that vicinity. And Sid had taken a light bulb from the toilet and had gashed his hands, you know? And his hands were sort of reaching out like this as we came through the door, and they were dripping. Both hands were just dripping with blood.
I got another call that he had cut himself and would I come back over to the hotel. So I went back over there, and indeed, he had slashed his arm lengthwise from his wrist all the way down to his elbow area. And they had it compressed so the bleeding was contained. That wasn't in danger, but it was quite clear that he was now at a different level.
It was clear that Sid was not stable. Also, his mother seemed to be having problems. She was bruised. They'd obviously been in a fight together. She just couldn't look after him. But maybe nobody could at that point. I'm not sure.
And so we talked and decided that had to put him in the hospital and called emergency medical services to come over.
In New York, if you call an ambulance immediately, along come the police. And in this instance, Sid being such a high-profile character, it was going to be a rough ride.
When he saw the police, he ran for the open window and grabbed him, just held him, and then the police came in. I think the cut wasn't a suicide attempt. I've seen people, particularly in prison when I was working there, that cut themselves, and the usual report is that they're in such pain they cut themselves essentially to let the pain out. And I think that was much more of what was going on there, but nonetheless it was dangerous.
Sid was taken immediately to the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital. Steve Teach was deeply concerned about Sid's state of mind and recommended he received long-term psychiatric care. But that didn't happen. Sid refused to stay and was released from Bellevue. In the weeks that followed, Sid repeatedly gave interviews to the press where he spoke of his desire to kill himself. In one interview, he claimed he wanted to be 6 feet underground and be at peace with Nancy. Unsurprisingly, this led the world to think that Sid ultimately took his own life. It now appears that this was not the case. Sid Vicious now has just minutes left to live. The party at Michelle Robinson's apartment is over. Sid is in bed with Michelle while his mother, Anne, sleeps in the next room. Sid has somehow managed to get his hands on the heroin. What happens next has been a closely guarded secret for 27 years. Some have speculated that Sid committed suicide, but for the first time, Sergeant Richard Houseman of the New York Police Department reveals what he was told when he investigated Sid's death.
Michelle said she was in bed with him. They were engaged in lovemaking, and that he decided to get high. She didn't want to let him get high. So in the meantime, he started to cook the drug up and wanted her to inject it into him. And she said no, she wouldn't do that.
Let's help me out a bit, will you? Come on.
I can't do it.
Why not? You can do it.
No, I won't.
It just takes a second.
I just won't do it. Okay, fine.
Yeah?
Yep.
Unable to cope with Sid's demands, Michelle leaves the room.
She came back out here into the front room, and then the mother, she told the mother what had happened, and the mother then said, well, I'll go in and see him. So the mother went in.
Sid's mother died of an overdose in 1996, but before she died, she made a remarkable confession to journalist Alan Parker. Faced with Sergeant Houseman's testimony, Parker has agreed to reveal her secret.
Anne told Michelle to wait in the living room while she went to speak to her son. Because he'd OD'd, he was in a very sweaty, shaky, horrible state, and he couldn't reapply the tourniquet, fill a syringe, or inject himself again. So she did. She reapplied the tourniquet, and she filled the syringe, and she re-injected him. And being a heroin addict herself, she knew exactly what to put inside that syringe that basically would have been enough drugs to kill 2 people, never mind 1.
With Sid's mother dead, we'll never know the precise motive for her actions on that day. But Parker believes she deliberately killed her own son as an act of mercy. In spite of the confidence of his lawyers, she knew Sid was terrified he might be sent back to Rikers, and so she took matters into her own hands.
And I only believe she did what she did because there was still that tingling thing at the back of her mind and at the back of his mind that he might not get off and he might end up being in prison for 20-odd years.
Michelle Robinson was outside the room, so there were no witnesses to Anne's actions, and the authorities were unable to prosecute. With Sid dead, the case of Nancy's murder was closed. For the New York police, Sid was the only suspect.
It's a difficult thing to have to come to terms with because, you know, I was part and parcel of supplying him with something which probably was responsible for killing him off.
If I regret anything, I regret not having been there.
Sid was a child, you know, he never grew up and never really had the chance to.
October the 30th, 1993. On this day, a Hollywood heartthrob will die from a massive overdose of cocaine and heroin.
The call came in sometime after midnight. It came in as a seizure up on Sunset Boulevard at the Viper Room.
I walked out and I literally cartwheeled over him. He was lying on the sidewalk getting resuscitated by paramedics.
I didn't understand what had happened. You know, half an hour ago, he was, you know, seemingly no problem. And then boom.
This is the story of the last 24 hours of River Phoenix. Los Angeles, Saturday, October the 30th, 1993. River Phoenix wakes early. To the world, he's Hollywood's golden boy. Vegan, ethically minded, squeaky clean. The truth is very different. For over 2 years, River has been struggling to overcome a drug problem. Today, that problem will overcome him. River is working on a film called Dark Blood. He's been on the film for 2 months and has stayed off drugs all that time. But when he arrives for the last day of filming, director George Slouser notices River is behaving strangely.
There was a difference in, I'd say, body language. He could not judge distances perfectly well, and his walk was a little different than normal. He was someone who would never sit longer than, I think, 20 minutes without standing up from a chair. And that day he sat maybe for an hour without moving from the chair. He had been taking drugs the night before. That was obvious.
River has an on-again, off-again drug habit, but recently he's been finding that habit harder to manage. Until today, he's been clean on set, but it's been a struggle.
I saw him during the shooting of Dark Blood. He was in bad shape during that.
And I think that had more to do with the drug problem at that point. That it was a difficult film. He was having a difficult time on it, trying to stop, detoxing, the pressure of having to do the role when you're not physically ready. It was a difficult, really difficult time for him.
Now, for the first time on the shoot, it looks like River is losing the battle.
And I got a call on my machine, and he says, it's River. He said, maybe I can see you over the weekend. He says, you know, I'm having a real hard time keeping my head above water. He says, in this crazy business. It was the first time I ever heard any uncertainty in River's voice.
So far, River Phoenix has had a charmed passage through Hollywood. Now, on the set of his 14th film, he's coming apart. River was 9 years old when his family moved to Hollywood. By the time he was 15, he was already getting noticed. He just had something special.
The first time I laid eyes on River Phoenix was when I was casting my movie, Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. I'd come from lunch and somebody said, well, you're gonna meet this kid named River. I said, River, is that his real name? And she said, yeah. I said, what? She said, River Phoenix. I said, whoa, what a name. I walked into the little reception area, and this kid stood up. And as he walked over towards me, I saw this light around him. And it was like a halo, and it was an aura. I mean, all of this happened within seconds. I just said, this is a star.
It was River's performance in the hit movie Stand By Me that thrust him into the limelight. Overnight, he became a teen idol. His face was on the cover of magazine after magazine, and he was getting thousands of fan letters every week. But River was more than just a pretty face. He could act, too.
Every single take was excellent. You only did one take, or two maximum, and the enthusiasm and the intensity was there, so he was inspiring everybody else. People wanted to be around River.
I don't think I ever felt that something was false or fakey. I'm quite sensitive, I guess, to people who are either theatrical in the wrong way or are just saying lines which they don't understand or don't mean, you know, they don't know. It has a lot to do with, the pauses you make when you talk and how your voice goes and so on, and how, I would say, the body and the voice and the arms and the feet and everything and the eyes are in sync, or one thing. When you think or feel one thing, your feet should feel it too. If you don't, then you're acting the wrong way. And River, in that sense, was absolutely an actor, because I felt that his whole body was participating.
Soon, River was on Hollywood's A-list. He was Oscar-nominated for his role in Running on Empty, and his part in My Own Private Idaho won him the Best Actor award at the Venice Film Festival. After just a few years in Hollywood, River was earning almost $1 million a movie, and he was a pin-up the world over. But for River, the money and the recognition was not enough in itself.
He wanted really to be good in what he did. So at that level, you might say that his fame and his success was an adversary to his peace, and that he was being seen. And also knowing that his family came more and more to depend on him because he was the main breadwinner for a clan.
Aged 17, River found himself supporting his parents, 4 brothers and sisters, paid staff, and hangers-on.
He was the golden child who went to Hollywood, became a movie star, and so he had the pressure of having to support his family, to bring in income. I can only imagine that it presents a kind of pressure that, so when the work stops and you're like, ooh, what am I gonna do next? Where's the next job coming from? I know I'll get something, but, what do I do in my downtime, How do I take the pressure off? I think that's another avenue where, partying and drinking and, having that kind of life can really, present itself and as a healthy alternative. This kind of like, oh, I need this because I'm gonna have to go back to work again soon, and I'm gonna have to stay clean for that, and I'm gonna have to, I just want to be me for the small period of time, and I just want to have the pressure off. he, you know, he had a lot of pressure. It's a big family to have to support and to feed and to house and clothe.
The pressure on his young shoulders was enormous, and from time to time he needed to escape. Music was one release. He would jam for hours late into the night, often falling asleep over his guitar. The other way he relieved the pressure was to take drugs. River had the money and the freedom to do whatever he wanted, and his friends knew he had to be watched.
With River, you always had, you know, someone had to be there. Someone had to chaperone his drug use. And if they didn't chaperone his drug use, it was dangerous. It was always dangerous.
River has been on the set of the movie Dark Blood for 8 hours. He's on edge, feeling terrible after a late night taking drugs, and so far today, all he's done is sit and wait.
It took us all day to set it up, because we had just come back to LA, and we had other sets, and so, you know, the actors had to wait around most of the day for this one scene.
Director George Slouser is watchful of his star.
I felt that I had to be sure that everything was going to go okay. You know, it's like you have it's a bit silly to say, but, you know, if you have someone who's sick, then you might take along, you know, to sit down somewhere. You take care a little more because you don't know exactly how things will develop.
First positions, please. Finally, the cameras are ready to roll. It's time for River to perform. But of all the scenes he's ever done, the next is the one he's come to dread. He'd long idolized his co-star Judy Davis, but now he was getting the chance to work with her. She seemed to be doing everything she could to make his life a misery.
Cut.
She was very difficult to work with, and we had a bad relationship. I was very irritated by the way she treated River, by making it difficult for him to act, whispering instead of talking, or when you could help, not helping. Yeah. The only time I suffered through an actress, I've never had any problems with actors ever before in my career, but she made up for 40 years or something, or 30 years, because she was in a kind of way impossible, and she made it tough for River also. He complained to me many times that she was making it tough for him.
River was so sensitive, and I don't think that he'd maybe experienced even until that particular movie, people that weren't kind to him at some level.
River felt the antagonism deeply. He phoned friends in tears. Yet for 7 long weeks he endured it, asking George Slouser to postpone the love scenes.
He asked me, can I play this scene the last day, because I don't feel like doing it halfway and touching her and whatever. I mean, he'd said, you know, I'm getting goosebumps if I, you know, have to touch her arm.
Now the scene can be delayed no longer. It'll be the last of River's short life. And in just a few hours, he'll take the drugs that will leave him fighting for his life on an LA sidewalk. River Phoenix has 16 hours to live. He's on the set of his last film, Dark Blood, and he's in a bad way. He's edgy and nervous about the next scene. It's a love scene with Judy Davis, a woman he says makes his skin crawl. But so far, 3 takes are in the can, and River has held it together. Now, it's take 4.
Mark it. Mark. Frame. Action.
Somebody's gonna die. Believe me.
The scene is over and the shot should have ended when the director shouted cut. But when the crew gathered 2 days later, after River had died, they realized something very strange had happened.
At the end of the 4th take, it was cut, wrap, to print. The lights came down, and River became this perfect silhouette, lit by these candles, almost like you're in a church. River walked up to the camera and stood there for about 5 seconds. then I realized, oh, the camera was still rolling, and I turned it off.
River died just hours after this shot was taken.
It was the eeriest thing I've ever experienced through my camera. It still gives me the chills.
Filming over, River leaves set for the night, but the day's events have left him shaken. River was emotionally fragile. The smallest thing could upset him. This vulnerability had its roots in River's childhood. River spent his early years on the road in Latin America. He wasn't River Phoenix then, he was River Bottom. His parents, John and Arlen Bottom, were missionaries for a Christian cult called the Children of God. River's dad, John, held the grand title Archbishop of Venezuela and the Caribbean. They went wherever God sent them. Mexico, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. It was an unsettled existence. They had no friends, no home. Often struggling to make ends meet, they trusted in God to provide. Actually, it was often River. At the age of 5, he and his younger sister Rain were busking on the streets to feed the family. After 3 years on the road, his parents had had enough. In Caracas, they threw themselves on the mercy of Father Stephen Wood.
I was at that time pastor of this church and had been a friend of the Children of God for many years. And this family showed up saying that they were leaving the Children of God and needed help. They had decided that they could no longer accept the directions they were receiving from headquarters. They found them increasingly at odds with what they read in the Bible.
The Children of God would later become notorious for their ideas about sex. Teaching that sex was just another way of showing God's love, couples often swapped partners. Children were encouraged to sleep in the same bed as their parents while they made love, and children were to be initiated into sexual practices at the age of 4. Whether River was involved in any sexual practices has never been ascertained. His close friends refused to talk about it. Soon after these practices were advocated, his parents wanted out, but their decision left them stranded.
They found themselves in a foreign country with absolutely no funds, no place to live, no money to buy food for their children, and no way to get back to the United States, which was their goal. They asked for hospitality and help. Meanwhile, they were going to try to earn enough to eat out of and then to see how they would somehow get back to the U.S.
Father Wood gave them room and board, and in exchange, River and Rain performed Christian songs during Sunday service.
The most well-known was that You've Got to Be a Baby. But River sang it not just in Spanish, but also in English, French. He sang it in Japanese and Swahili. I'm not sure that he was all that great of a singer, but he was a little kid. He was a great entertainer in his singing. And the fact that he could even play this huge guitar, this guitar that was so much bigger than him, was impressive. It was our most popular service, and it was literally standing room only. But he had the attention of absolutely everyone, while his little sister was out kind of working the crowd. I think on the streets where they had been trained, she would be going around asking for money. But here it was just kind of get the people to clap and to sing along.
After 4 months, Father Wood found the family a way back to Florida on a cargo ship. On arrival, they changed their name to Phoenix to symbolize a new beginning. But River's early years would leave their mark.
He told me he suffered from the upbringing. I guess part of his, vulnerability and fragility, which is also part of which why he's a good actor, is maybe due to that background. You can become strong because you have this kind of tough childhood, or you can get obviously traumatized. So I think it's a bit of both.
River was vulnerable. He took the knocks of everyday life hard, and drugs were an easy escape. River Phoenix has just 6 hours left to live. He's had a tough day on the set of his latest film, Dark Blood. But now he's back at his hotel where he can let go with his family and friends. Dickie Rude has been a close friend of River's for 2 years.
He was just in good spirits, you know. His family was around, his brother and his sister and his girlfriend, and he was happy to be, you know, off of the set. Things were jovial.
Dickie's wife, Abby, is River's personal assistant. Samantha Mathis has been dating River for the last 6 months. And some of River's family have flown in to see him. Joaquin, his only brother, is here. And so is Rain, River's sister, who shares his passion for music.
Yeah, Rainbow Leaf, Liberty Summer, they loved River dearly. He was the best older brother ideal you could imagine, you know, nurturing, caring, protecting, and would go to him for advice. And he had, you know, a great deal of experience with all of their emotions and differences.
There's no sign now of the stress he was under earlier on set.
It was a normal, like, welcome back to LA type of atmosphere. He was great. He seemed to be completely on his mark. There was no clue as to any kind of haywire going on or potential for that.
So far today, River has stayed clean, and that's the plan for the night ahead. He wants to keep a clear head because he's been asked to play at one of LA's coolest new clubs, the Viper Room. River is due to appear alongside one of his music heroes, but tragically, he'll never make it onto the stage. The movies dominated River's teenage life. They had to. They were his family's bread and butter. But River had grown up playing music. It was his all-consuming passion.
When he wasn't working as an actor on my movie, he was playing the guitar or he was writing music. He was always creating. I remember going to his room a lot of times and it was music books and song and notes and everything for his music. Because one of the memories I have is River's hair hanging down over his face and River hanging over a guitar. And so I remember seeing him a lot working on his music because he loved music.
According to him, it meant to him more than the acting. Like, for him, the music, he was more into music than into being an actor. He wanted to be a musician.
At 17, he got the chance to do just that. The family moved to Gainesville, a hippie town in Florida famous for its music scene. They bought a large ranch just outside the town and employed Dirk Drake as the family tutor. And when Dirk first met River, he recognized a passion for music.
I pulled up into the driveway, and there was a room that perhaps had been a garage, I'm not sure, but had big sliding glass doors, and I got out looking around. And when I came through, this teenage kid pops up, and he's got an Ovation guitar, and he's all excited to show me the engineering of it. I just remember thinking, this kid's a musician, he's so on it, and it was so important to him to share that guitar with me. Gainesville had a thriving music scene in the mid-1980s. This was the first place that the emerging punk rock, post-punk rock scene was happening, and I think putting the band together was a primary focus in coming here and finding musicians that would be complementary to the songs he'd written and the tastes that he had.
In 1988, River formed Alika's Attic with his younger sister, Rain. He threw himself into writing, turned the garage into a rehearsal studio, and booked the band on a 2-week tour of the East Coast. He put everything into the band and secured a 2-year development deal with Island Records. If, in that time, the band could produce a good demo tape, they would finance an album. The band was River's plan for the future, and he desperately wanted to be taken seriously as a musician.
It was very difficult for River because he didn't want his name or his movie star status attached to his band's gigs. And it never seemed to fail. They'd get a gig at a club, and the proprietors of the club, I guess eager to get people through the gate, mentioned, you know, River Phoenix and his sister Rainbow. It was disappointing because he wanted his music to be taken for the music and not the music of the Hollywood star.
Any chance River got to prove that he wasn't just a teen actor with rock star pretensions, he leapt at. On his last day, he'd get such a chance. River is letting his hair down after being on set all day. He and his friends have left their hotel and are hitting the town. Just after midnight, Samantha, Rain, Joaquin and River arrive at the Viper Room, Johnny Depp's club on Sunset Strip. River has brought his guitar. In the corner of the club sits a small stage. Tonight, Johnny Depp's band will be playing. Among the lineup is Flea, bass player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and one of River's closest friends. River's planning to get up on stage and jam with some of the best musicians in town. For this, he's staying clean. Pleasant Gayman, LA columnist, is also in the crowd.
It was very smoky and very crowded. It's a mixture of Hollywood hipsters and band people and people that just wanted to see Johnny Depp play in a band. You know, just, you know, some giggling, teeny boppy kind of girls. The rock scene then was really fertile in Los Angeles. It was, you know, there was a really hugely thriving underground rock scene, and the clubs had a decent crowd. They were very crowded, but they weren't overpacked with just people milling around not knowing what the hell was going on. The Viper Room, it was actually one of the first, like, cool clubs that was trying not to be an underground shithole. There was, like, big, burly, giant security men there with earpieces and the whole velvet rope mentality, and it was really excessive. It was really Hollywood. It was really just gross.
Samantha, Rain, Joaquin and River find a booth at the back of the club. River's waiting to get on stage. The lineup tonight will include Al Jorgensen of Ministry, Gibby Haynes of the Butthole Surfers, and of course Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. River's happy. He's staying away from drugs so he can jam with his close friend Flea. But that's not going to happen. River and Flea had been great friends since they met 3 years earlier on the set of My Own Private Idaho. Flea, a sometime actor, had a small part in the film. Filming began in Portland, Oregon, and almost immediately cast and crew realized they were involved in something special. They worked hard, they played hard. River and many of the younger actors moved into director Gus Van Sant's house. The day's work on set would be followed by jam sessions late into the night. This footage was shot by River's friend, Matt Ebert.
When he and Flea met on Idaho, you know, they got along like, you know, brother and brother. Like, they just went arm in arm into the sunset with it. Like, they just, you know, played guitar together and really, like, you know, became really close friends almost immediately.
Flea was fascinated by River's talent as an actor, and River is a fantastic actor who is wanting to be a musician, so it's a natural attraction and a natural source of friendship and learning for each other.
He loved him. He loved Flea. River was crazy about Flea.
From this moment on, River and Flea became inseparable, and on his last day, Flea would be with River until the very end. Inside the Viper Room, River has made his way to the stage. He's expecting to join the band, but there's a problem. Homicide detective Mike Lee later pieced together the events of the evening.
What's going on? What?
When he arrived there were more than enough musicians, as there quite often is in that type of a situation, so he could not get up onto the stage and play that particular night.
Well, I get good news and bad news for you all first.
bend. Give you the good news, I love you. But you can't play the game. You're serious.
I heard through some of the people that we talked with that Flea was the one who said, no, you can't come up and play.
Play bass.
Mr. Phoenix was disappointed that he wasn't able to get up on and join in the jam session. And because of that disappointment, he elected to get into the drugs.
River idolized Flea as a person and a musician and was excited about playing side by side with him on stage. Now he's been shut out, he retreats into the crowd and begins to look for drugs.
If you were of a mind that you wanted to go in and party with drugs, they were available. And, you know, it was your choice, whatever you wanted to do. It was not at all hard to find drugs out on the strip.
There was drugs everywhere. Probably the main things were cocaine and heroin. Plus, at the age of early to mid-20s, you still have the hallowed misconception that you're immortal. You know, you still look pretty. You don't really get a hangover, you know? I mean, you can, sure, I can do all of this, you know? It's not gonna have any consequences.
All right, you know what? I know what you need. I know what you need.
So I know that he was disappointed, and being disappointed in something will, I think we've all been there, where instead of reaching over and closing the door, you sometimes slam the door.
River is about to take the drugs that will kill him. My Own Private Idaho introduced River to Flea. It was also where his drug use first became dangerous. By 1989, River had played some interesting roles, but they were all safe, chosen for him by his mother and agent as suitable for the River Phoenix image. Yet River longed for something different, dangerous and adult, longed for a role he could call his own. The script for My Own Private Idaho offered that role. This was an art house film about male prostitutes based on a play by Shakespeare, about as different and edgy as River could have hoped for.
It was very, very cool at that point in time in youth culture to focus on the dark side and focus on the beautiful loser and the romantic lost boys and girls of our culture. And River was attracted to that and curious about it. And this was his chance to jump into it.
His character, Mike Waters, was a heroin-addicted rent boy, and River was determined to do the part justice. With his personal assistant, Matt Ebert, River spent days hanging with rent boys on the streets of Portland, Oregon.
Now we're mixing ourselves up with street kids and, you know, boys and girls, young boys and girls, and the drug element is there. We have dealers, we have Johns, we have, you know, we're kind of on the underbelly of all of Portland, trying to scrape up some history. We're going to bookshops and, you know, little bathhouses and, you know, looking for any kind of seedy. We're looking for it because we have to recreate it. We have to, you know, do it, and we want to do it right. We don't want to just, you know, invent, you know, this for an audience. We want to create, we want to reflect it. And we want to do it honestly. He was really into research. He was very big on, like, okay, I got to learn all about these characters. We'd go into what they call Vaseline Alley, and we'd meet street hustlers, and we'd take them home and we'd interview them.
Here I am walking in the motel room in my bathtub. Morgan, I stand next to you, and I say, so you're gonna take your pants off. Mm-hmm. What is your reaction?
Mind-boggling stuff, you know, like the lives you would run into with this. And you're thinking, you know, here I am with this. We're actually doing, you know, trying to find out what it's like to do that, you know, what these kids actually have to go through. And a lot of it was really painful, you know. And I think that while it can feed an actor, it also can be dangerous. You know, the closer you come to a really dangerous environment and a situation, the closer that environment gets to you, too.
One of the fundamentals of acting is research. You know, there's a certain amount you can bring from within, but then there's a lot you need from without. And when we were on the streets of Idaho, and he was acting, and we were all acting with street kids who were literally heroin addicts, and you knew they were heroin addicts because they had tracks in their hands and they talked about it on the film. So that River would try that would be, I can't imagine him not trying that, actually. I mean, being as young as he was and as brave as he was.
Depending on how you're looking at it.
River had drunk before, smoked some dope, snorted some coke, but always in moderation. Now he knew no restraints. As the parties at Gus's rolled on night after night, his drug use escalated.
Because I feel there's a theme.
Xanax, Valium, Vicodin, Percodan, Percocet, you know, drug after drug after pill after pill after pill, smoking pot, drinking alcohol, snorting cocaine, snorting heroin or smoking heroin. We did a lot of drugs. You know, we did a lot of drugs.
What had started as character research was now becoming much more dangerous.
We're not made of Teflon. We're skin and bones. And, you know, I think that's when, that's when his addiction really started to take off.
However hard he battled it, the urge would always be there. In moments of stress or anxiety, the temptation would be hard to resist. The Viper Room, the club which will become infamous in less than 1 hour, is nearing capacity as Johnny Depp's band gets going. Upset that he couldn't get on stage and jam with Flea, Rivers scored some drugs. He heads into the bathroom to collect.
Here he is coming off a period of a dry spell where he's working on a movie that's not going well. And he's frustrated and he needs release and he needs to relax. And all he can think of to do is, you know, go out and get loaded.
Rain, Joaquin and Rivers' girlfriend, Samantha Mathis, are in a booth at the back of the club. They're completely unaware of the horror that's about to unfold.
He ingested a quantity of drug that appeared to be heroin and cocaine in powder form. It appears that it was snorted, and the reaction was almost immediate.
River has snorted a speedball, cocaine and heroin mixed together.
When it works great. When it doesn't work, you die. That's like Russian roulette.
Several sources told me that the words were, this is too much, or words to that effect, too much, too much.
River is clearly in trouble. Someone offers him a Valium to calm him down. His heart is beating wildly, misfiring. The cocaine causing it to race out of control, the heroin telling it to slow. He stumbles out into the bar. He has just 1 hour to live. River's drug habit really took hold after My Own Private Idaho. He began to spend more and more time in LA. Part of the reason was his growing friendship with Flea. But LA was dangerous for River. The crowds he ran with partied hard.
It's hard to be young and cool and hip in Los Angeles with money and time and shitloads of exotic drugs at your disposal. There's a point at which drugs, sex, rock and roll can be personally, maybe culturally, artistically rewarding, and there's a point where they can be very destructive. And River was finding those boundaries.
More often than not, River was crossing those boundaries.
My band, the Ringling Sisters, was holding we used to do annual orphanage benefits. Anyway, at one of them we were having at the Roxy. There was a really cute boy passed out backstage in the hallway and just getting worse and worse, like sweating and just, looking like he wasn't getting up. And I was like running around being a stage manager and making, doing raffles with the audience and stuff. And finally, I looked down and I'm like, who is that really cute and really fucked up boy that's laying on the floor? We have to get him out of here. And someone said, that's River Phoenix. I'm like, that's River Phoenix? Jesus.
In the periods between Idaho and going back to Oregon to work on Even Cowgirls Get the Blues and seeing him then, it was taking its toll. He was the drugs were definitely beating him down. And, you know, his skin was getting bad, his hair was getting bad. Everything just looked rougher and, you know, more ripped up.
River's family were concerned about his visible deterioration and confronted him. But River refused to admit he had a problem.
They were such a beautiful spiritual family and so supportive of him in so many ways. But, you know, like most families, I think a little painfully unaware of the realities that he was going through in terms of the drug addiction.
The family home had always been River's refuge. It was a place he could rest, recuperate, and clean up. But life at home had changed. The family was now attracting hordes of hangers-on. Many of them had drug habits and just wanted to party with the young movie star. Temptation was everywhere.
I turned to River and said, you know, a lot of these people are not very well educated and they're completely reactionary and they're just partying hardy and living a glamorous life from one moment to the next. And if they're fucking their lives up, it's not your responsibility and you shouldn't enable that. And if they're fucking your life up, then it's your responsibility to detach yourself from that.
By his last year, River was working hard to clean up his act. But the temptation was always there. Clean periods were always followed by a binge. River's life became a struggle.
Those months were tough. They were tough on everybody who was hovering around the supernova, you know, because it all of a sudden just exploded and was gone.
Inside the Viper room, River has just taken a massive overdose of cocaine and heroin. His body is struggling to survive, but he can still be saved. He just needs help, fast. River Phoenix has less than an hour to live. He's gone to the Viper room on LA's Sunset Strip. His sister Rain, brother Joaquin, and girlfriend Samantha Mathis are in a booth drinking. They think River's on stage getting ready to jam with friends. Actually, he's been shut out of the jam session and, disappointed, has just snorted a massive speedball, cocaine and heroin combined. River's body has gone into shock.
It's one thing to use heroin and cocaine and everything on a daily basis. Your system becomes used to it. Your tolerance stays the same. But when you start and stop and start and stop and start and stop and then always go back to where you left off, you run the risk of overdosing and killing yourself. He was a kid. Kids make mistakes.
Back at the table, River's having a difficult time. It's obvious he's not feeling well, but no one's aware of the effects that the drugs are having on his internal organs. Toxicologist Dan Anderson later analyzed River's blood.
There was a very significant amount of heroin and cocaine in his system. There was so much cocaine there, it's astronomical. It's 8 times what we consider lethal. He either didn't realize the purity of the drug and took his standard amount that he normally took, or he took way too much. A body can only tolerate so much. And after that tolerance is over with, you're gonna die of the drug.
What started out as a fun family reunion is rapidly turning into a nightmare.
Hey, wait a minute.
By his last year, River's drug use had hit its peak. Friends and family pleaded with him to get clean. He started to listen, and the periods between binges grew longer. He began working on a new music project with Sasa Raphael. In April, River was approached about a new film, Dark Blood, but there were worries that his drug use had taken too large a toll and he needed to rest.
I called River more or less every 2 weeks when he was in Florida. And I wanted to know if he was okay and if he was still in a good mood, if he still liked the story. A little bit, if you want, not to check, but to feel how he was. And I was aware, obviously, that he had been taken drugs before. I was hoping that he would be, you know, I would say calm
River's father, John, had recently moved to a farm in Costa Rica, but he realized there was a problem and intervened.
His father flew up from his farm, and he never does that. He did at this time. He was just like was not interested in coming to this part of the world at all. But he flew up specifically to convince his son not to go film the next movie.
John was just saying, give it a break. You know, I would hope that you can get back to the garden. Take a break. Don't do any more projects for a while. Come live in Costa Rica. Work in the garden. Let's get back to being a family.
But River wanted to work with co-star Judy Davis, whom he admired so much. And he was the family breadwinner. He had some 30 people to support. He decided to do the movie. For 7 weeks, the cast and crew of Dark Blood lived and worked in the middle of the Utah desert. All that time, River stayed clean.
I was quite busy, so that there were many times when I started to get the feeling I am so busy with, you know, the preparation of the shoot and the cameras and the this and the that I was not spending maybe enough time with River.
Finally, the location wrapped, and the production was moved back to LA for 2 weeks in the studio. River was heading back to Partyland. He took his leave from director George Slauser.
Before leaving, he said, okay, bye, going back to the bad town of LA. And I didn't realize what he meant with the word bad. Unfortunately, only after its death, I started to understand what the implications were in the word for him.
4 days later, River would snort the speedball that killed him. Inside the club, River has been suffering badly from a drug overdose, vomiting and passing out. At first, Rain and Joaquin weren't aware of just how bad things had got, but as his condition worsens, they drag him outside for some air. As soon as River's body hits the street, he goes into seizures. The vegan with the squeaky clean image is now dying of a drug overdose.
The people around him at that time, it was a kid, his brother, young kid, Joaquin, and he's dying in front of them, and they don't know what to do. And the people in the bar don't know what to do. They watch this celebrity move around, and they watch this famous person. Do we say something is happening to this famous person? The fame itself kept him from getting what he needed to live.
Whether the fact that River is a celebrity, or the fact that drugs are involved, or the fact that they're terrified by this sudden turn of events, the result is the same. No one calls for an ambulance for a full 5 minutes. Finally, Joaquin takes action. All 911 calls are recorded. This is Joaquin's call.
Yeah, he's having seizures on Sunset and Larrabee. Please come here. Okay, calm down a little bit, okay? What's the address where you need us? It's Sunset and Larrabee. It's at the Viper room. He's laying on the cement. Is he breathing? I don't know. The last I checked, they said he was breathing. Is he fucking breathing? I don't know if he's breathing. Please, you gotta get over here with the ambulance. Who's with him right now? My sister and some people. Sister? Yeah. Okay, can you talk to her from where you are? I got her. She's trying to give him mouth to mouth. Please get over here, please. Calm down, okay? Sir, calm down. Tell her not to give him out.
It's 4 more minutes before the paramedics arrive. River is lying still. His seizures have stopped and his breathing is shallow. The speedball is attacking his heart. Beating wildly out of sync, his heart is failing, pumping little or no blood. He's running out of time.
River Phoenix was lying on the sidewalk, unresponsive, with a couple of friends around him. And he was pulseless, he was non-breathing, and had no heart activity. We immediately started CPR, intubated him to control his airway, and started an IV, and gave him a series of drugs in an attempt to restart his heart.
Back at the Hotel Nico, two of River's closest friends, Dickie and Abby Roode, have no idea their friend is in trouble.
We got a phone call at the hotel, a hysterical phone call. I can't remember from who, whether it was his brother or his sister. We jumped in the car and rushed up the street. It wasn't that far away, but it was a terrifying shock. A terrifying shock to see your best friend lying on the sidewalk with paramedics standing over him and a crowd of people around dressed up in Halloween costumes, and it was just incomprehensible for me.
Having failed to restart his heart, the paramedics prepare to transport the lifeless young actor to the closest emergency room. News of the incident has spread into the club. Flea runs outside and demands to travel with River to the hospital. But it's too late for River Jude Phoenix. He's pronounced dead at 1:51 a.m., October 31st, 1993.
I remember when I heard about it, I remember where I was. I remember being just devastated, you know, that he died that way, you know. And I was surprised, despite thinking that I wouldn't be surprised.
I've heard people say it was his time and he was ready to go, and that's bullshit. That's bullshit. He loved life and he cherished and nurtured life around him, and I'm sure his own would have been right there with it as something cherished and nurtured.
I went with his sister and we brought his ashes home. And I remember this as long as I live. I gave his ashes to his mother, and she held them like a baby. And it was one of the most tragic things I've ever seen in my life.
He's become a kind of mystical being in people's lives, somebody that inspires them, not because of his tragedy, but because of that quality that he had, which was always spiritual, so that when you see him, that magical thing didn't die with him.
He was a good friend. He brought out the best in you. And I miss him a lot.
Marvin Gaye was a superstar, a Motown legend.
He was the prince of Motown. He was truly that kind of a person.
He had that kind of charisma where the ladies just loved him.
But the smooth exterior and golden voice hid another very different Marvin Gaye. Paranoid, suicidal, addicted to cocaine.
When he was good, he was really, really good, and when he was bad, he just wanted to get the hell out of the way.
In 24 hours, a lifelong family feud would finally come to an end. Marvin will be dead, shot by his father. March 31st, 1984. Marvin Gaye is one of the most successful recording artists in the world. After a grueling year-long tour, he's retreated to his parents' house in LA. In less than 24 hours, he'll be dead. For the past 6 months, Marvin has been struggling with a growing depression.
There came a time when he just put on a bathrobe and was just there in the house. He just never left.
It was crazy, dog. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Hey, come on, Marvin. Come on in, dog. Hey, what's...
Marvin Gaye is addicted to cocaine. Since moving in with his parents, his use has increased steadily. It's caused tension with his father, having junkies and dealers constantly coming to the house.
What's been up?
When Marvin came back to LA, he just wanted to be left alone, but everybody came out of the woodwork. So there was constant traffic at the house, day and night.
Is that a fact? You know, yeah, we can party here. Yeah?
Any normal household doesn't have 20 or 30 people coming and going all day long, every day. And it gets old very quick, and Father was just tired of it.
I know she was all over.
It was a little too much activity for him. He liked to remain peaceful in his room without any activity going on around him.
Marvin and his father have been locked in a power struggle since he was a child. But now Marvin is the breadwinner. He bought the family home in LA, a fact his father resents.
There's a struggle between who was going to be the head of that family. And theories, life and religion and everything else, and all the blow and everything that's going on there in his house. His father would think, I guess, which it was, I guess.
The one person who's always held the family together is Marvin's mother. She has her own bedroom between her husband and her son.
I think the deal that Marvin had was he started putting his mother in the middle of it because, you know, I can't fight you back there, but I can get mama for you, and she loved him to death. And he basically used his mama, you know, against his daddy.
Marvin's mom, in many ways, was a peacemaker and a negotiator and a referee and a nurturer. I think that she was his anchor. I think that she was the one place that he felt love.
My father always knew there was a closeness between Marvin and his wife. He always knew that.
Marvin's father is jealous of their relationship and his son's success.
They were like in two different worlds. They didn't acknowledge each other. I've never seen such a strained relationship between two people. You could kind of feel the vitriol.
You know, there seemed to be some love there, but they were always in conflict. They were always seemingly in conflict.
In 22 hours, the bitter hatred between father and son will explode in violence. "45 years before, in Washington, D.C., Marvin Pence Gaye was born, the second of 4 children, the son of a preacher.
My father was a very strict man. He believed in discipline, very much so. And being a minister in a church, and you know what people say about preachers' children, sometimes they are the worst. I've heard that all my life. So he was determined we were not going to be the worst.
He just wanted the perfect family. And everything had to run the way that Father wanted it, because he had this dream of, you know, the perfect family.
Marvin's father enforced his will through violence.
We were punished, and Marvin received more punishment than the rest of us because he was a maverick. I always called him that. Even as a child, he did things differently.
Marvin would test Father. Frankie would tell me Marvin would test Father a lot.
The power struggle that they had actually was, in many ways, a way that Marvin sought approval and acceptance from his dad.
Instead of using compassion, softness, tenderness, then he began to dictate and dominate. And he became a force, a power in his family, which turned his children.
From age 7, Marvin suffered routine whippings. He also had to endure the shame of having a father who wore women's clothing.
His father was not only a cross-dresser, but he was a very flamboyant and out there cross-dresser.
He'd have his little, ladies' slippers on, pumps, and, slide around sandal things and waltz around. He was proud of it, so he didn't care.
Neighbors knew about Marvin's father. Kids called him names, sissy and homosexual.
The image of his dad as a preacher, this powerful, cross-dressing, church front preacher who would come home and wear his wife's clothes. The shame that imposed upon Marvin.
Marvin's childhood was a daily torment, full of pain and confusion. His salvation was music. At age 5, Marvin began singing gospel. His voice won him instant praise.
People were amazed at his voice. He loved all the attention he was getting. All the nice things they were saying to my mother and father. Where did this boy get such a beautiful voice?
Marvin's voice was his ticket out of his father's house. By his late teens, Marvin was singing for money. His father was furious. To him, it was the devil's music.
He did not sanction his son going into the secular world. And that was one of the things that hurt him so bad. He was permitted to do it or to venture into that field by his mother.
She supported him, she encouraged him. And I think that is one of the primary reasons that she was so important in his life. She symbolized for him what it would be like, unconditional love.
Resented by his father, indulged by his mother, this dynamic would define Marvin Gaye's life. But it was his father's ominous threat that would end it.
My father has always taught us, even from children, that we don't talk back, number one, and we certainly don't act as though we want to do any harm, number two. And he's always said if we did anything, to raise our voices at him in that manner or to strike, that he brought us in this world, he can take us out. He used to tell us that we were little kids.
The children knew to take his threat seriously. And on the last day of Marvin Gaye's life, his father would prove himself a man of his word. Los Angeles, California. It's late afternoon. Soul superstar Marvin Gaye has just 18 hours to live. He's staying with his parents, a father who beat him as a child and a mother who's always been his strongest support.
Marvin and his mother had a wonderful relationship. They were really close and, shared a lot of things together, and they loved to laugh together. You could walk, down the hall in the house and you would hear laughter coming from the bedroom. And they had a good time together.
But there was always tension in the house.
It doesn't take much for things to erupt, you know that. So that particular day, of course, was a day that my father had been drinking. And there was an argument with my mother over some business papers.
Unpaid taxes and 2 divorces have forced Marvin to sell off his properties. Gaye Sr. is worried his home might be in jeopardy.
There was just a lot of everything folding. The studio's gone, you know, the Hidden Hills is going, this is going, that's going, it's all gone. What else is gonna go? And I think it might have been in the back of Father's mind. Plus, him just trying to make sure that his son knew that he was a failure, no matter how famous he was.
Look at that! Mother!
Knowing my father, he probably raised his voice at my mother. I don't think Marvin would have intervened if he didn't think he had to protect my mother from something.
Hey, who do you think? What are you talking about? What are you looking at?
Knowing Marvin, he probably told him not to talk to his mother that way. And knowing my father, he probably told him to stay out of it. And knowing Marvin again, he probably stayed in it.
Listen, look, don't you ever get out. Get out.
Marvin, please don't speak to the father.
Marvin's reliance on cocaine is making him edgy, volatile, and paranoid. He's convinced someone is trying to kill him.
He had a .38 pistol in his pocket at all times, loaded. I told him about how worried I was. In fact, he was doing these drugs and he never came out of the house. He was walking around with this loaded pistol. And I said, I'm really worried about this. He said, oh, Dave, you don't have to be worried.
But there's good reason to worry. The house is stockpiled with weapons. When Marvin moved back home 6 months ago, he gave a gun to his father.
You know, one of the biggest ironies is that Marvin thought he was being chased and followed and pursued, and someone was looking to kill him. So he gave his father a gun, so his father might shoot the person looking to kill Marvin.
It was a fateful decision. Marvin had put the gun in the hand of his killer. "23 years before, Motown, the music industry machine that would soon churn out a dizzying number of hits, was just finding its feet. In 1960, Motown was the only record label that gave black artists a shot at becoming superstars. Marvin Gaye was chasing that dream.
He was a drummer, and he hung around the studio, and he was looking to get noticed, and the competition was keen. His initial struggle at Motown was to get people to pay attention to him.
Marvin's boyish good looks caught the public's eye. His velvet voice made them listen. In just over a year, he had a hit song, Stubborn Kind of Fellow. Gaye was making a name for himself, but with the spotlight came hurtful rumors.
They came to my dressing room and said, you have a call backstage. And I went to the phone, and when I got there, they said, did you know that Marvin was gay? I just hung up the phone because I got upset about it. But people teased him about the G-A-Y.
Marvin wasn't gay, but questions about his sexuality brought back the shame he felt as a child, as the son of a cross-dresser. Before going on tour, Gaye added an E to the end of his name. But on stage, there was no confusion. To his female fans, Marvin Gaye was a sex symbol.
I remember on one of the Motown reviews, the fans went crazy. And I'm walking down this big hallway, and I hear somebody say, Kim Weston, Kim Weston. Oh, man, am I glad to see you. And I look around and hear Marvin hiding in the doorway. And I said, what are you doing? He said, they're everywhere. All the girls were after him, so he's gonna walk with me to find out where I was going. As soon as we walked out the door, there was a bunch of them. He said, oh, there he is. And he just didn't know what to do. He tried to run, but they got him. So I walked onto the bus. I said, I think you all better go rescue Marvin, because they got him back there.
Marvin had his pick of admirers. In 1963, he chose Anna Gordy, sister of Motown head Berry Gordy. She was 17 years older than him.
There was a mother image there, and I think he saw things in her that he may have desired his mother to have, because his mother was very passive, and Anna was, yeah, she was out there.
Anna was more than a mother figure. She was a powerful woman who could help his career.
Like everything else in Marvin's life, I think Marvin's relationship to Anna was really complicated. I think they loved each other deeply, but she was a Gordy, you know, and he saw in her a way to climb the ladder of success and give him a head start on everybody else.
Soon, Marvin got top billing and became one of Motown's biggest names. He had a unique style. It was so unusual that his recording of I Heard It Through the Grapevine was initially shelved.
It was so different, we just could not picture it in the top 10. We knew it was good, it was super good, but it was just way too different. And so finally they decided to recut the song on Gladys Knight and the Pips.
I Heard It Through the Grapevine was a hit for Gladys Knight and the Pips. The song's success convinced Motown to release Marvin's version in 1968. It immediately outsold Gladys Knight's and became Motown's biggest single ever, selling nearly 4 million copies.
What it did for Marvin was it gave him clout, and it set him up for his next move, which was, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to be produced by anybody else. I'm going to write this suite of songs that pays no attention to what they're playing on the radio these days. I'm going to become an artist with a capital A, and that means my first allegiance is to my art and not to commerce and not to making Mr. Gordy happy or anybody else happy, that I have to make my own sort of personal muse happy, and I have to answer to God, not to the Motown Corporation. So Heard It Through the Grapevine was the key that unlocked the door to Marvin's independence.
The success of Grapevine freed Marvin of the controlling influence of Berry Gordy and allowed him to record the songs that would make him a superstar. Evening has fallen on Los Angeles. Marvin Gaye has just 15 hours to live. He is staying with his parents in LA, where he spent the afternoon in a bitter argument with his domineering father. Marvin is addicted to cocaine. In his paranoid delusions, he believes someone is trying to kill him. For protection, he stocked the house with guns, but now fears his brother, who lives next door, wants to harm him.
Where's my gun? What do you need a gun for? What do you mean I need a gun? People are after me. You don't need a gun. I want a gun. Come on, Marvin.
Frankie said, Marvin, you don't need a gun. And he goes, oh, even you've turned against me, now I can't trust you.
Calm down.
I knew where the gun was, so I went and got it. And I made sure there were no bullets in it. And I gave Frankie the gun. And because I saw how upset Marvin was getting.
Give me my gun.
And he took the gun from Frankie.
No, you got what you want.
And he checked, and there were no bullets. So he got really upset because he wouldn't help him. And then he walked out the door, and before he slammed it, he just said, even you're not my friend anymore, you've turned against me. He just slammed the door and went down the steps.
The hell with you. You are not my brother.
Desperate, Frankie calls their friend Dave Simmons to come up with a plan to help Marvin.
Dave, hey, it's Frankie. Listen, man. We were just determined to do something. We had no idea what we were going to do exactly, whether we had to actually physically restrain him. We had no idea where we were going to try to take him to. But we just knew that we had to do something.
Frankie was just like, you know, what have I done wrong? You know, I'm just trying to protect him. Frankie knew what state of mind he was in, and how he was just being tormented inside and was totally miserable, and he just didn't want to see him get in more trouble.
He was crazy. He had gotten really just gone really crazy, you know. And the way Frankie described the way he looked physically, you know, he said he was just, had his coat all buttoned, kind of crazy, and he was just out of it, gone, you know.
Dave and Frankie are convinced Marvin needs treatment.
Marvin had told my mother he was going to go to a hospital and dry himself out. And she was holding him to that promise. And he was gearing up towards it, too. So he never went, but he was going to.
In reality, Marvin's cocaine abuse is getting worse. In the last few years, he'd started freebasing. The drug was killing him slowly.
It was crazy because it destroyed him, basically, because, you know, most of the membranes in his nose were gone. It had burned out. And, you know, I don't know. I know, you know, he always smoked. But that was nothing, you know, just smoke. But then I think he probably smoked less and just did more cocaine. Just got to the point where it just took over everything, and, you know, he was just not himself at all, you know.
Many black people have a very high tolerance for discomfort. They believe that, you know, we feel bad all the time, and that's just the way it is for us, and we'll deal with it. So I'm not surprised at all that Marvin Gaye never sought treatment, because I think that he believed that he should be able to do this on his own.
In the final hours of his life, Marvin was a slave to his addiction and at war with his father. The deadly combination of drugs and conflict would soon end his life. "14 years earlier, the Vietnam War was at its height, and Marvin Gaye was about to hit his peak. With the success of I Heard It Through the Grapevine, Marvin had won creative control over his next album.
Marvin had a lot of talent and a lot of creativity, and he had more ability than most of the producers that were there at the time.
Marvin took inspiration from the Vietnam War to write one of the most successful concept albums of all time. What's Going On was a tribute to his brother Frankie, who fought in the war.
What's Going On, Marvin dedicated to Frankie because of all his stories. He gave him the inspiration to write that album.
It was a masterpiece. With What's Going On, Marvin resurrected deeply held spiritual beliefs. He was delivering a message about poverty, racism, and war.
Marvin was the type of man who carried the world on his shoulders. Everything affected him. He felt he wanted to do something about it, and the only way he could do anything about it, he thought, was through music.
Marvin wanted his music to matter, that he would be the voice of someone that would inspire social change.
But Motown was about upbeat dance music. Berry Gordy hated What's Going On. He refused to release it.
Berry Gordy's reaction was one of how would a Marvin Gaye fan relate to this?
Marvin came to my hotel room after I left Motown, and he told me, he says, "Kim," he says, "I recorded the best album I've ever done, and nobody likes it. Not my wife, not Berry Gordy, nobody likes it." And I said, "Marvin, do you like it?" He says, "It's the best thing I've ever done."
Marvin swore he'd never record another song unless Motown released What's Going On. They did in 1971. It was an immediate sensation. 500,000 copies sold in the first day.
Tonight, I'm so proud to have the greatest singer in the world in the auditorium tonight. It's Marvin Gaye.
The next year, Marvin made a triumphant return home. Washington, D.C. proclaimed May 1st Marvin Gaye Day. It gave Marvin something he'd never had before, the respect and admiration of his father.
To be hugged by his father in public? Oh, yes. That was a wonderful thing for my father to walk up to him and say, "Son, I'm so proud of you. This is wonderful. You have really caused me to be very proud of you." And so that was a good thing. Very good.
I wasn't there for Marvin Gaye Day in 1972, but I have a feeling it was, you know, he talked about it a lot, and I think it was a big deal. I think it was like a little happy moment, actually, one of these Polaroid pictures where Mommy and Daddy and Marvin were reunited, and I think it was sweet.
Everyone in the community came, and it was a big deal, and then Wham, and, you know, people in Motown and others that may not have known Marvin's family that well saw. And I think it just, they were in the public's eye. And so I think he wanted to do the right thing. And I think he really, you know, just had a change of heart. He was going to give it his good shot. He was going to do his part if Dad would do his part.
I think it's one of those snapshots out of his life of perhaps what could have been. Had there been true harmony between Mom, Dad, and Marvin, had there been some kind of reconciliation, had there been some kind of deep understanding, on that day, it was okay. But that day was a very isolated day and a very extraordinary day, and a day not at all typical.
Tragically, this was a fleeting moment of happiness. Father and son would never find a lasting peace. The years of conflict and violence had left scars too deep to heal. It's early morning in LA. Marvin Gaye has less than 4 hours to live. Yesterday's argument over money has been simmering since last night.
Good morning, Mother Gaye.
Good morning.
Marvin's sister-in-law brings breakfast for his mother. She tells her to give it to Marvin. Even this small act of favoritism is seen as an insult by Marvin's father.
You could just tell. You could tell when Father's mom, just by the glare down the hallway. He was upset that Mother didn't say, give Father the breakfast instead of give Marvin the breakfast. Because I believe Father built up a jealousy over Marvin and Mother's relationship because she paid so much attention to Marvin.
Marvin was her baby, and you know, if there was any choice between the two, it would always be Marvin. And you know, he loved her so much, and if there was any animosity or jealousy, it would have been on the father's part, because I don't think Marvin felt that you know, she favored the father over him at any time.
As she sets down the breakfast, Marvin's sister-in-law notices he's in a bad way.
Marvin didn't look well. He looked absolutely wiped out. He looked like he hadn't slept for days. He just looked tired. It was almost like he just wanted to give up.
Okay, well, make sure you have some later, okay? It'll make you feel better.
In fact, over the last few weeks, those who knew him well believed Marvin was contemplating suicide.
He had a desire not to live. And so when I think of it in terms of the uses of drugs and everything, he was basically trying to take himself out. But he was a very strong individual.
As he wakes, Marvin is in pain physically and mentally. He's exhausted, his body wrecked by years of drug abuse. He was a man looking for a way out. Ten years earlier, Marvin was at the top of his game. What's Going On had secured his place among the greats of soul music. With his career on track, he tried to make a fresh start with his family. He moved to Hollywood and bought his parents a house in LA. But his success failed to bring the Gaye family closer together.
Once we moved into what we call the big house on Gramercy, things started deteriorating, I would say. I noticed that my father was becoming more and more recluse, which meant he didn't want to go anywhere or do anything. And it was my mother who was going places and doing things. My mother would accompany my brother on his tours. But it's not that he never asked my father. He would always ask him, and he would always say no.
Marvin's father still frowned on his son's career, even though he lived off his royalties.
His father withheld the approval to his son to the point of destroying him. Unfortunately, I beg to differ on father. I think he was very, very poisoned by negativity, and it was important to him to play takeaway with people that wanted something from him. And Marvin really wanted it from him. He hated him. He loved him at the same time. You know, it's just he didn't want any acknowledgement from him. Then he really wanted everything from him. So it was just like it just became a curse on Marvin, you know, and it just drove him into everything in his life like that: his music, his relationships, his kids, everything.
Marvin pulled away from his father again and immersed himself in the LA music scene.
LA in the 1970s had this kind of coke plague, you know, where everybody was tooting and rooting and going crazy with cocaine, and particularly in the music world.
It wasn't long before Marvin was addicted to cocaine.
I saw it increase. First, it was just a little bit here and there if there were parties or this and that. It became just off the hook. Eating it, you know, smoking it, you know, any kind of way you can take it. It made him real nervous and uptight and paranoid. All the symptoms of that type of a drug, you know.
Marvin's marriage to Anna Gordy fell apart, and he hooked up with 16-year-old Janice Hunter.
She was this absolutely gorgeous teenager.
They met while Marvin was recording Let's Get It On, his tribute to sexual freedom. She became his second wife, and Marvin set about creating his ideal woman.
I think he saw in Jan a way to mold a woman, you know. Take this teenager and turn her into what he thought a woman should be.
Marvin's ideal woman was his mother, but it was an image no one could live up to.
I believe that he held her up as a standard by which he gauged the morality, the ability to commit, the perseverance, the charm, the grace that his mom had. And then he, in turn, created a self-fulfilling prophecy that, you know, nobody's going to be able to do it for me.
As Janice failed to meet his expectations, their relationship blew apart. Infidelities led to jealousy and quickly turned to rage.
Well, I had to go underground with my sister for a week or two because he was threatening to kill her. Until he called one day and said, all right, it's over. I want to see my girl. And she went back to him, and, you know, then they went on another vacation.
Marvin had this ability to shoot himself in the foot. Marvin had this ability, or this uncanny psychological mechanism which would undermine happiness. And he would figure out a way to complicate his life. He loved drama. He loved emotional drama. He went for pain. He found ways to hurt himself over and over and over again.
It's very common that addicts and alcoholics will sabotage their own success because it's a lot easier to kind of stay in the addiction and get applause for doing 50%. Whereas if you're supposed to have it together, the expectation is that you're going to do 100%.
With a constant supply of cocaine, Marvin was becoming the violent, controlling man who had tormented him as a child, his father. On his last day, Marvin and his father are locked in a power struggle, seething at opposite ends of the house. A lifetime of resentment will soon end in tragedy. It's late morning. Marvin Gaye has just 2 hours to live. Marvin is staying with his parents in LA. Addicted to cocaine, he's suffering paranoid delusions. He thinks someone wants to kill him. His father is fed up with his son's madness and drug use. When he can't find some important business papers, his anger explodes.
Mother!
When he storms into Marvin's room, another bitter quarrel erupts.
Mother, where are those papers?
Marvin, his whole life, was told what to do, not just by his father, but by Motown and everybody else. And when he came back home, things from the past just took a built up.
For the first time in his life, Marvin strikes his father.
And I'm sure Marvin may have pushed him. And when he fell, Marvin kicked him for what my mother said. And then he got up and went into his room.
I warned you. You don't talk to me. You don't be upset.
Marvin's father leaves the room humiliated, all respect for his authority gone.
A lot of young men, they grow up in homes where they're under the thumb of an oppressive, critical parent who had convinced them all their lives that they weren't good enough. And so part of their growing up and coming into their own and being successful is an opportunity for them to say to the parent, screw you, I got the power now. See?
I knew in my heart that if my brother or any of us struck my father, that he would do something terrible. Because my father had always told us that he would if we ever did.
Five years earlier, ravaged by his cocaine addiction, Marvin's career had stalled, and he was on the run from the taxman. Federal agents had seized his house in LA for failure to pay taxes, and he was living out of a van in Hawaii.
I'm trying to think of a good word to use for how he saw money. He was very free with it, for one thing. And he didn't take it truly serious. He didn't.
He wasn't a person that cared about money, so you couldn't lure him into doing this and doing that by mentioning some figure. It was just, he was a kind-hearted person.
He bought himself a Rolls Royce and bought himself a couple of houses and a place in Jamaica and never went to Jamaica. I mean, he just lived in chaos.
In Hawaii, Marvin was running from his problems. He was at war with everyone, his wife Janice, Motown, and the IRS.
That's where he fell into really great depression. And his cocaine habit worsened. You know, he was getting high all the time.
I guess the whole thing about Hawaii was just sort of like take the people that were into the same kind of sadness and self-destructiveness and do it for a while.
After 7 months, mounting debt forces Marvin Gaye back onto the stage. But a tour in Britain ended in scandal when Gaye skipped a concert and left Princess Margaret waiting for hours. Once again, Marvin went into hiding. this time in Belgium. Away from the pressures and temptations of LA, Marvin began to rally. In 1982, CBS paid $1.5 million to buy out his contract with Motown.
And it was in Ostend where Marvin began to recover and build up enough strength to make his sort of last comeback.
Marvin was off cocaine, but his failed relationships with women haunted him. Ritz visited him in Belgium, where he saw Gaye's apartment filled with sadomasochistic drawings.
I think he was tortured by the fact that he never had a good romantic female relationship. And I remember saying to Marvin, this is sick. What you really need is sexual healing. And he said, I love that idea, just sort of write a poem about it. So I wrote these lyrics, and he immediately took them and put a melody to it.
Sexual Healing and the album Midnight Love became the first hits Marvin had had in 9 years, winning him 2 Grammys. But back in LA, he became hooked once again on cocaine. On his final concert tour, Marvin's addiction spiraled out of control. While millions of fans reveled in his performance, backstage, Marvin was self-destructing.
It was not an easy tour to keep control of, and it become pathetic because you had loved ones bringing in drugs and you couldn't keep it away from it.
I went to a couple of concerts, but I was not on the tour. I wouldn't even go close to it. It was crazy. He thought someone was trying to kill him.
Marvin insisted on having his brother beside him at all times as a decoy for his imagined killer. They looked so much alike. The cocaine was driving Marvin insane.
That is very consistent with heavy daily cocaine use. And actually, one of the number one reasons that we see addicts in a psychiatric unit is for a drug-induced psychosis.
It's the beginning of, I think, the most tortured part of his life, when he loses his mind. And out of his mind constructs a kind of a screenplay of his own death. And it all begins, I think, on this final tour.
As the tour ground on, Marvin began stripping down to his underwear while singing Sexual Healing.
And to me, it was very sad because it showed that he wasn't feeling the love that people were offering him. And he was feeling like an object. Ultimately, he didn't understand that he was deeply loved by his fans, deeply loved for who he was, this complicated character.
After the tour, a broken Marvin Gaye retreated to his parents' house. It was a fatal mistake.
He returned to the source of his psychological dilemma. And by now it's worse. It's exacerbated by his drug use, by his dad's alcoholism. There's no clarity.
Marvin Gaye has less than 1 hour to live. In a violent argument, Marvin has just struck his father for the first time in his life. Some believe he knew exactly what the consequence would be.
Kicking your father. Son, Marvin.
I told him if you keep bothering your father, he means it when he says, I brought you in this world, and if you ever get me out, I'll take you out.
After bringing breakfast to Marvin, his sister-in-law is back in her apartment next to the main house. Marvin's brother Frankie is with her. They're unaware of the fight going on next door.
Marvin, kicking.
By beating his father, some believe Marvin had found a way to end his life.
Marvin was really and truly, as he explained to me, knowing certain times he didn't want to live.
Without explanation, he just shot him.
I heard the pops of the gun.
Frankie, I just heard a gunshot.
What shot? I didn't hear a thing.
No, I heard 2 gunshots like 2 seconds ago.
Are you sure?
And he said,
I'm
oh
sure
no,
you
that
didn't
was
hear
just a car on the freeway. It must have been. And I said, Frankie, it sounded like a gun to me. And he said, no, we live right next to the freeway, you know. She collapsed in my arms, and I'm asking her, what's wrong, what's wrong? And all that I could hear was shot. And I'm like, you're shot? And she said, no, father shot Marvin.
Marvin Gaye has been shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the chest. One of the bullets has damaged several vital organs, and he's losing blood fast. Marvin's brother Frankie rushes into the house, but he's cautious, scared that his father may attack again. Marvin is conscious when Frankie finds him. He yells to Irene to call 911 and then waits with his brother for the paramedics to arrive. His father is still armed and in the house.
He was conscious when Frankie was holding him. But
paramedics arrive in under 10 minutes, but they refuse to enter the house while Marvin's father and the gun are still inside.
Father? Father?
So I found Father. He was sitting on his bed.
Irene.
And I'm asking him, where did you put the gun, Father? And he was just sitting there, very calm. And he looked up at me and said,
What gun?
What gun? It was just like there was nobody home. And I said, the paramedics are here and they need to come in and they won't come until the gun is outside. Please tell me where the gun is. And he just bowed his head. I was going through his drawers and everything, looking for the gun. And I flipped his pillow and it was under his pillow.
Marvin is dying in his brother's arms. A full 20 minutes pass before paramedics can get to him.
If Marvin didn't die on the spot, he died on his way to the hospital.
I remember the one at the end of the stretcher asking me, did I know his name? And when I said, it's Marvin Gaye, he looked at me twice and he said, you don't mean the Marvin Gaye? And I said, yes, and he just started to cry.
You can't really describe the hurt and the pain. Because when you love someone, it's just a hurt that you cannot describe.
I remember coming out of a baseball game on that day, on April 1st, April Fool's Day, and hearing on the radio Marvin Gaye's, father has shot and killed Marvin. And I thought to myself, that's how he's going to do it. Oh my God. That's so Marvin. That's so perversely brilliant.
The official time of death is 1:01 p.m., April 1st, 1984. The next day, Marvin Gaye would have turned 45. Marvin Gaye Sr. pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and received a 5-year suspended sentence. His son remains one of the most influential musicians of his time.